Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
Companies world over are laying great stress on making it adaptive to change and ensuring an environment of constant learning for all within the group. Today, a highly adaptive learning organization has become synonymous with progress.
A highly adaptive learning organization is characterized by basically 4 tenets. These are organizations that have withstood the test of time by creating an inherent organizational memory, what we call as knowledge within the organization since its inception. And they've managed to keep pace with the changes by altering the organizational memory to those requirements. That's the first characteristic. The second characteristic is that these organizations have been able to create organization models which have been flexible and agile to suit the external requirements or the external market needs. And the third is they've been able to establish a culture of learning within the organization that actually takes into account how people aspire to learn and be successful within the company. And the fourth, which is very, very critical, is that they've been able to model their strategy and change their strategy depending on what the market conditions have depended on and what their customers have been asking them to deliver to their requirements. Actually, in the last decade, not just for organizations in India but also globally, there's been unprecedented change. Change is being driven by a high level of innovation. There's been change driven by a huge shift in technology.
Pluralsight, the world's leading online learning company for technology professionals, organized a panel discussion for CXOs from the IT industry on highly adaptive learning organizations and why companies must pay more attention to it. Led by its country manager for India, Arun Rajamani, the members of the esteemed panel were Puneet Gupta, Chief Technology Officer of Brilio; Nate Walkingshaw, Chief Experience Officer of Pluralsight; Mohan Narayanaswamy, Managing Director of iNautics; Hariraj Vijaykumar, Global Head of Learning and Development at Cognizant; and Prithvi Nanjappa, Vice President of HR for India and North America at Nest Technologies.
Let's get started with you, Hari. Cognizant in the last few years has set a blistering growth pace, right? Much of it can be attributed to the agility that Cognizant has had in the market to respond to how the markets have evolved in various countries. What has been your view of how this response has happened? What do you think has been your ability to have reprogrammed the organizational memory within Cognizant? And how has Cognizant emerged as a result of that? Has it become more adaptable? And how has it really been reacting to those situations?
There are 2 elements to it. Right? I think about it as a leader and a firm, we need to have a very keen eye on the radar and a very firm hand on the steering wheel. When I say keen eye on the radar, it's easy enough to look at things that are in front of you. Let's say if you pretend that you're a ship or a plane, it's very easy to see the things in front of you. Especially if you have business success, you tend to think that you're moving really fast. And corollary to that is you tend to think that you're moving faster than others. Fairly a bad assumption to make, especially in any competitive sector. So, idea is figure out, is there a way for you to keep a 360-degree view from a radar standpoint? Second thing is actually slightly harder, to have a firm hand on the steering wheel. I'll give you a quick example of what's closer to my heart, right? I think that I have seen in my experience. Cognizant Academy that I had essentially has the philosophy of developing the internal talent. So what we have always said is that, look, we will look to focus our bandwidth and capability in developing our internal workforce globally. What we realized is, as we are starting to tackle, or we are being asked to tackle larger talent development challenges, we started facing issues. Our instinct was to still plow forward in the same direction, use the same models, put more resources into it. Then I think instinctively we paused. We said, look, is there a way for us to get better? And we looked at basics of us. Client centricity is something which drives us very hard at Cognizant. One of our strong points, we are all wired, as a company and employees, we are all wired to think on behalf of our client. So we said, why not use this? So we said, let's go out to the clients, ask them what are some of your talent development challenges. And we as an academy, who traditionally don't do it, will go tackle some of those challenges. It was a hard journey for us as a group. But that journey really forced us to come out of our comfort zone and really then figure out, okay, as individuals within the function, how do we really start to engage with our clients and see the client problems differently?
Puneet, let me jump over to you. You represent an organization that in many ways is a challenger today. You started off with legacy services, and then you saw the opportunity for new age services, and you made a dramatic shift towards that. So while you did that, how did you approach that transition from moving from legacy to the new? And what challenges did you encounter along the way as you did that, and what really was your approach towards making that happen?
When Brilio was formed, our excitement was to create a company that can create magic out of digital. So what we were inspired about was to celebrate creating that machine vision based solution, so a doctor looking at an MRI can find out patterns that no doctors had been able to discover 30 years in past. And we wanted to celebrate those aha moments and not just celebrating creating the biggest data processing engine in the world or creating that beautiful mobile app that engineers are proud of. So we knew very well at the beginning that this would require a different culture. If this would require a different DNA, like many say. So the first thing I think that is required in such a situation is you got to define what your culture and value system is, and you got to be sincere about it, because it is easy to define something nice, but you got to believe what you say. And once you do that, the next step is really for the top management, for the leadership to demonstrate ownership of those value systems. And finally, I think what we observed during this journey, that if you truly want to be that company that creates all this magic and truly live the digital life, then you got to behave like one, and you got to learn from millennials.
Thank you, Puneet. I think great points. I mean, creating the DNA is your identity that you want in the new environment and taking people along. I mean, fantastic to hear that. I mean, that's really the mantra for your success in terms of making sure that transition happened. Mohan, in many ways you're representing an organization that's truly a bank. It's in the financial services institution, while you have to maintain the identity of a technology company that's delivering to that requirement. The industry is highly regulated, and often you would find that what you want to do cannot necessarily be made to happen because of the regulations that exist. In your experience, when you've driven an organizational memory through execution, have you had a situation where you started off on a journey hoping to go down a path and a vision, but then you had to go back and change because of external factors? And how difficult was it for you to make that happen? What were your learnings from that?
And just like all other industries are getting hit with change, so are we. Change is not only in the regulatory front, change is in business models. So when I say business models, I think what is happening is there is this big phenomena, disintermediation, which is happening. The producers of items or financial products are directly going out to consumers and users, thereby eliminating the role of intermediaries. So that's a big change in the business model, and I think many organizations are truly struggling with that. Technology continues to change every single day. So there is so much of change which is happening out there, and I think how we are adapting to do this change is quite unique. From our perspective, we want to be a thought leader. We don't want to be an agent of change. We want to be setting the trend. And towards that, what we are doing is we are creating a platform, and our platform is called Nexen. So this is a completely transformation change. It's not easy because as a company, we've been in business for over 230 years, and we have been the pioneers in innovation and thought-provoking leadership. So the first exchange-traded fund was created by our firm almost 200 years ago. So at that time, I think what is the change, what is the driver for innovation, and what is happening today is like completely different. So our ecosystem, our platform that we are really out to create is going to be leveraging the new things in financial industry like Bitcoin, blockchain, and a whole lot of things. Now this calls for a completely defined set of leadership, a completely different culture. And that's where I would think that our opportunity, I mean, and exactly I say this as an opportunity because we are a very large company. There are portions which move like an elephant, and there are portions which are set up like a startup company. So the whole goal, the whole aim is to ensure that we get Our whole process is agile, make sure that everyone gets on, in fact, to this entrepreneurial-like culture as opposed to the managerial culture. And that's really our challenge, which I would think in 2016 and beyond.
Thank you, Mohan. You touched upon a very important aspect, which is culture. And we're going to come back to you to get more thoughts on how you think culture is going to play an important part of actually driving the transformation. So I'll come back to you for more thoughts on that. Prithvi, Ness is an organization that decided offers many streams to bet big on digital. We're seeing that more consistently with most organizations today. Skills, however, in this area are very hard to get. It's not easy to build an organization with capabilities in digital, especially with emerging technologies. So how are you going about building organizational capability?
Every day there seems to be a new technology that is being discussed out there. How are we trying to deal with that? There is a vision that the organization has accepted, right from the CEO downwards. It's very clear that we are operating in an environment which is very dynamic. It's going to change. All our customer needs are going to change every day. And so we need to have a very agile, so something that you alluded to, an agile organization which keeps changing. We have kind of created processes and layers of support systems within the organization, which kind of deals with this. Starting from the CTO organization, which is actually deciding on what technologies we are going to focus on, current as well as future that we need to be looking at, creating a set of CTO assets within the organization. And these are people who are specializing in different areas. Then you kind of look at your tech leads and then your engineering heads and then the HR people organization jumping in. All of this is quite easily documented and delivered again, time and again. And then we ensure that the organization plugs into the Ness Academy program, which is constantly bringing that what is latest to our employees.
I mean, this is so good to hear that your approach is to making sure that you empower the employee to learn and deliver while you enable this, the learning to happen. Definitely a key part of how you would create a learning organization. Nate, what is your advice to the business leaders and the HR practitioners sitting in the room today in terms of how they should build for future trends?
It's really building an organization on a foundation that can adapt. I think you have to embrace the reality of where your organization is today. And if that organization isn't built around an ability to really move or change or be an agile organization, you're probably not going to be an organization that's going to be successful for very long. There is a reckoning that's coming. There's a lot of statistical significance out there around, what I know today. 2 years from now, only 50% of that knowledge is really going to be relevant or current. And so, our ability, as practitioners and as people leaders is really to build an organization that just naturally can adapt on its own. And so maybe the example I'll give is what we're doing at Pluralsight, which is really the entire structure of the organization is from a human-centered perspective. So everything that we do aligns all the functional areas of the company, finance, marketing, sales, learning and development. Everything is geared around the product and our users. So our company is geared around personas. This audience in here would be a persona. It would be called the skills development leader, and our entire company is built to serve that single persona. And so the teams are really freed up. I heard a lot of things, a lot of really great themes on here, which is, culture and values. And we have 3 main values that we really embrace and care about. And 1 is to be entrepreneurial, 2 is to be truth-seeking, and 3 is to be an internal optimist.
Puneet, you talked about the DNA of an organization, establishing a DNA, and then making sure that everything is aligned around the DNA and taking people along. So let's go a little, deeper into what you had just said then. So as you built your organization that was transitioning towards digital and new age, you would have obviously considered a lot of cross-functional linkages, so people could work together. The true innovation came out in the interest of what Nate said, keeping your customer right in front and center. Talk to us a little bit about how did your learning and talent transformation strategy align with the principles of having that DNA in place?
So I think when we started the journey, in the first phase focused on creating those individual capabilities. So learning was aligned to how do I produce the next greatest artificial intelligence developer, and how I produce the mobility or IoT specialist. But then we created what we today call Brio Imagine. And what it consists of is, it's a cross-functional team of design thinkers, technologists, business domain experts, and their job is, and they are held accountable to this very clearly, their job is to get in front of the client, figure out what the problem is, challenge what the problem is. So you use the process of this cross-functional analysis of a problem, bring in design, bring in rapid prototyping, and produce something that inspires the audience on the other side.
So Hari, on the diametrically opposite side, so mid-sized organization experimenting with an entrepreneurial approach and trying to get new age technologies done, versus steering a ship, and you mentioned the point, having a firm hand on the steering wheel. But how difficult is it to steer a ship which is 250,000 people strong, and making sure that that ship is actually able to sail towards newer technologies? Because that's something that the market is now asking for. How difficult has it been for you while doing that?
A lot of the times when I hear change programs and the principles, right, sounds like a very simple, straightforward thing. But human beings at large scale, change involved, it's quite a messy affair. We have got to know how to listen very, very carefully, and then really have the conviction and the courage to make the changes. I guess that's really critical from a change standpoint.
Absolutely, and having the early warning systems in place, so you make sure that you know what's going on before the problem starts to really happen. Prithvi, so what have you really done in terms of making sure that the transformation really happens? How do you go about empowering your employees?
One of the clear indicators that we give to anybody who joins NES, you own your career. Your manager is not going to manage your career. Right? Now, they are quite perplexed, given the context of India and how we are guided by seniors at home, your parents, and then your teachers, and thereafter your coaches in the cricket parlance. Right? So they are shocked. Now, we do go at length to explain to them what does that mean. Practically, what brought you here to NES is not what is going to help you grow within the organization. So you need to make yourself relevant to the organization in order for you to experience the growth, in order for you to realize your own potential. You need to look at constantly evolving yourself.
Mohan, going back to the earlier point about the regulated industry, you have a challenge today that you've got certain technologies that are legacy in nature, and at the same time there are technologies that are emerging that are more modern in nature. As a captive unit of a bank and being a technology company, there are only so many resources that you get, and there's no way that you're going to be able to print additional resources. So how do you manage this dichotomy of skills, that you need to have people who are skilled on both the old and the new, and they continue to go back and deliver innovation and excellence?
I think the best solution there, and I think actually was touched by Puneet earlier, we are moving away from creating what we call technology-based teams and moving on to what we call a service-oriented culture. So across the entire BNY Mellon, we have X number of services. These are the services which are being provided to clients. And we are not mandating the service depending on a skill or a technology. All we are saying is that if you are a service leader, you need to act like a CEO of that service. Feel empowered to run that service like you're a CEO. You're entitled to make all the decisions on that, whether it is a service performance, service strategy. So that, I think, has been one thing, because anything which our corporate CIO has been mandating, because the overall technology team globally is about 13,000 people, and anything we do has to be done in scale. It's not practical, it's not possible, it's not good if we do any change or any culture attention or intervention at a team level. So this service management, service-oriented culture is something which we're trying to drive down deep into the organization.
Talk to us a little bit, Nate, about how you would advocate the establishing of a culture of learning for organizations to adopt. What would be your advice? Having been a mentor, a CEO, you founded several startups. So how would you really look at that?
Yeah, this question is good because if Aaron Sconard, our founder, was here, it was funny because Aaron was on a panel 3 weeks ago at a product and engineering summit. And it was really nice for me to hear that he kind of told, a very similar audience that we went through an awakening as a company. And the awakening is, Nate, I thought I knew what was in the best interest of the user. I thought I knew what was in the best interest of the learner until we actually built the organization around the user. And we really didn't go on that journey. We really didn't know who we were. If I'm giving advice on how to do this, I guess it probably goes back to what I've said before, is that if you can build your organization, I think you have to first do the analysis. Like, can you actually build this? Can you influence it? Can I be a person that can structure that organization around, the people that use it? And if you can, then I think you're wide open. I think you'll absolutely dominate the market and the landscape because you've got your fingers on the pulse of how people are using things.
So one of the interesting things that we saw today in the panel discussion is about how, large organizations of varying industries are looking at the challenges of learning and taking learning to the employee or the resources in a very customized way.
I think there was a lot of focus around the culture, which I quite liked. I think that really sort of nailed the issue. A lot of organizations, or I think a lot of panelists really spoke about that. So that too, for me, was something heartening.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.